Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm talking about the Turtle Beach Stealth Ultra controller. This thing is $200 and it has Hall effect joysticks, which means no more stick drift. So I wanted to get that out of the way right off the bat because to me that's what makes this thing very exciting. There's a lot of things to talk about with this controller. I'm going to talk about some pros and cons. The cons are more of like the experience side, but not so much from a design standpoint, but we'll get into all that. Now this was sent to me for review by Turtle Beach, so huge thanks to them. Won't affect what I say about the review. I have no financial kickback or any association with, monetary exchange, regardless of how this video performs or how many times you click it. I never do any of that, but again, just full disclosure. Eventually, I will have an Amazon affiliate link. It's just a generic affiliate link whenever it becomes available on Amazon, because I'm filming this prior to launch. So with that being said, let's talk about what you get, because this thing is pretty exciting. Now, I mentioned it's $200. It's designed for Windows and Xbox, and it comes with some similar stuff to what you expect from the Elite 2 controller from Microsoft, which is a first-party controller. So you get a zip-up hard case, which is actually quite nice. The zipper is nice too. It's kind of a soft, scratchy material. Fabric on the outside, but it does offer some good impact protection. When you open it up, there's some similarities with the Xbox controller as well. You have this little charging dock and transmitter stand. I'll talk about how that works, but it has a USB-C pass-through. So with the included cable, which is quite a long cable, you just pull this flap down, press that in, and now when you're not using the controller, you can place it in here and close it to kind of keep the dust out. But obviously if you don't want to use the case, because it's a removable cable, we simply pull that off. Now, unlike the Elite 2 had like a magnetic base. So when you put it on, it kind of just stuck there. This one doesn't, but it's fine once it's in there. This is a really nice, soft, like velvety type material. So I want to talk about accessories. So you get the transmitter. Now, you don't need to use the base with the transmitter. This could be a charging dock for power, and the transmitter can be used for signal. This is important because if you have a device that puts your machine to sleep, for example, so let's say your USB ports go completely to sleep, it's not going to charge the cable once the machine is turned off. So you can hook up the dock to a dedicated USB power source using this. Just plug into like one of those little USB-A, wall wart cables. Now your dock is a charging dock. And then you can plug your transmitter into the console or PC. There's no switch or anything to deal with. There is a pairing button on it, but basically just plug it in to your device you want to connect to. Or conveniently, you can plug it into this base and then plug your cable in. Now your dock is a charging station and the transmitter all in one. So depending on where you want to put it, this is really convenient for PC gamers because it puts the transmitter closer to your controller instead of like sticking it behind the tower. And again, it's a single cable, so that's kind of nice. Now, as far as the other accessories go, there's one cap missing because admittedly it's on my desk right now, but I wanted to show you some differences. So you get two caps, or two style caps. You get the concave one that has a couple or 4 dots on it to help with grip. And then you have the convex one that kind of sticks up a little bit. This has more grip. I usually like the dome caps or the inverted dome where you kind of have like an indent for your thumb. But just for full disclosure, the stock thumb caps have a little bit more grip to them. These are, they're really nice thumb caps, if you will, or stick caps, if you will. And my thumb doesn't slide around. When I put these on, these raise the controller height or the joystick height a little bit. You can see it makes it a little bit larger as well. And when you do the top-down view, you can kind of see the difference in height. So they give you the leverage in case you want a longer joystick, but my thumb seems to slide just a little bit extra. So I provided some feedback to Turtle Beach saying, hey, it'd be nice if these caps kind of shrunk or changed material down the road so it would be a little bit more grippy. So maybe they'll heed that suggestion or not, but I do want to share how that felt. Now, the killer thing with this controller is the layout and the specs, because I mentioned it has Hall effect joysticks. And for those of you who don't know the importance of that, you may have had the infamous stick drift on your older Xbox or any other controller. You don't touch anything on the joystick and it slowly drifts. Your aim is all over the place. You end up buying new controllers every 6 months to a year, 2 years, depending how often you use it. That's gone with a Hall effect controller because it's a magnetic sensor inside instead of a physical, it uses more like a potentiometer resistor type thing inside. It's made by Alps. That's what most controllers use. But with a Hall effect, there's no contact points or anything like that that wear out over time. With a magnetic sensor, it pretty much always goes to 0 when it's dead center. Now, interestingly, when it comes out of the box, it has a dead zone enabled of 3, I think it was, or 2. It's not set to 0. I set everything to 0 because that's one of the benefits of a Hall effect. And I had 0 issues whatsoever. It stays on 0. The other thing I like, instead of the just the Hall effect sticks, is it uses micro switches on a lot of buttons. So like the ABXY, I'm gonna get the Elite controller because I wanna show you the differences of some things, and we'll talk about gameplay and customization after. So here's the Elite controller next to it. Now I mentioned, by the way, $200 for this MSRP. The Elite controller has an MSRP of 180. 30-hour battery life, 40-hour battery life, and they both have back buttons, just a different layout. This uses the levers and this uses buttons. But you gotta hear the difference, so check this out. So I'm gonna do the micro switch on the new one, and I'll hold it up to the microphone. They feel so good, it's so precise, and then you go to the dome style switch. It's squishy. It's like a membrane switch, so you don't have the same tactility, I guess, as the micro switch. The micro switches are also rated for 5 million clicks. So as far as durability goes, and even on these, listen to that. It's a really nice feeling. They even have it on the D-pad. Now the D-pad, a lot of people are gonna ask about this. I'm not like a pro platform player when it comes to like fighting games or anything like that. So, you know, if you're looking for Mortal Kombat or, you know, Tekken style stuff, I'm not gonna be the right person that's going to give you good feedback for those games. However, this favors left, right, up, down. The diagonal is harder to actuate compared to the Elite 2 with the dome D-pad, because this makes it very easy to get diagonal. So it just depends on what you prefer. I never need the diagonals for the games I play. I like up, down, left, right. So this gives me a very precise feeling to it. Now, on the back, I want to talk about this, the buttons. So these have removable paddles, which is cool in case you only want to use, you know, a couple at a time. When I first got the Elite 2, I actually had to train myself because whenever I played, I kind of like squeezed the controller and I was always, you know, doing the wrong thing. But once you get used to it, it's great. I've typically liked paddles more because it seems very natural and easy to squeeze. And I've been apprehensive about buttons in the past, primarily because 2 buttons are always in a great spot and then the other 2 are kind of weird. This one is the better layout for my personal preference for the way buttons feel. It's very easy to squeeze with my ring finger for the inside one, and then I use my middle finger to push up. And listen to that too. Versus, I mean, it's squishy. It's not as precise. With this, you know exactly when you're pressing it. There's no question about it. So the micro switches and the Hall effect alone for a lot of people is honestly worth that by itself, because that is a massive difference for long term, not only in a performance sense, but also for durability, because you don't have to worry about the controller, you know, failing where you get buttons not working. My Elite 2, this is my 3rd Elite 2, and this one, the right bumper is starting to not work whenever I try to cook a grenade. Sometimes it just throws it because I'm not like squeezing really hard, and the other 2 have gone from stick drift. So even though this is cheaper, I've always bought like the $50 or $60 warranty at Best Buy, because that way once this thing fails, I just return it and get a new one. So keep that in mind. You know, this might be cheaper up front, or if you get a few of the standard Xbox controllers, you know, these are what, like $50 to $70 each, but as they wear out, you're going through them every year or 2, and that shouldn't happen with this. Obviously it just came out, but the switches and Hall effects are huge for durability. All right, now it's time to customize the controller and show you how the interface works, because there's some amazing things that this thing does. I am pleased to say you don't have to use the Windows app or the Xbox app to customize it. The good news is you can, if you want to save time, you can use the Windows or Xbox one. There's even a mobile app that helps you toggle through different presets, because this has 10 onboard profiles, and you can run local profiles as well. So you have a lot of customization options there. The Elite 2 controller has 3 onboard profiles. Frankly, I've been happy with 3, so I personally haven't needed more than that. But for those who play a lot of different games and you have very specific customization, maybe you just want several different RGB profiles, and some's for FPS, some's for racing, you know, whatever it may be. So you can do all that on the controller, and it makes it super easy. Now I own I own Hex, I own Scuff, I have the new Nacon controller, which I actually like a lot too, so I'll be reviewing that. But that's the PlayStation style. So with this, when it comes to customizing, being able to do it with a screen, which is super unique, makes it so much easier to know what you're doing. And I do want to say, I love that these are labeled. I have the P1, P2, P3, and P4, because as we will soon see on the screen, that helps make it very easy to know what you're changing. I do want to show you this though. You see how the RGB is fading from blue to purple? You can obviously customize that, but when you go into the settings mode, you can see it turned all blue now. So if you pick this as your color profile and you're like, why are none of my controls working when you're playing a game? When you're in the customize mode, it doesn't send anything to the PC or the Xbox. It's only for adjusting it here. So you can see once I hit it again, the purple comes back. So pick an obvious color in my opinion. I think it makes it easier. I haven't been able to change the customized color. But when I hit the plus sign, you can see these different letters and stuff pop up here. So what I can do is you have Y for full settings, and I'm going to go back. Then you have the signature sound, microphone settings, and then the bottom is your messages, because this worked, by the way. I even got my work messages showing up when I turn this on. So when you install the companion app on your phone and your phone gets a notification, if that app's been turned on and connected, because you have to put this in pairing mode to reconnect it, you can get notifications on your controller. So I'm not sure how many people want that, so I'm going to leave that one there. Now, what I really like is there's a huge feature to this right off the bat. You can see if you look closely, you have volume on the left and game to chat mix on the right, built into the controller. So if I hit the plus, now I can literally use the back paddles and you can see it adjusting. So right now I'm adjusting my game to chat mix just by using the buttons. And then on the volume side, I'm using the left buttons to turn it up and down, hit plus again, and I'm back to normal. I know it's an extra step of pressing the button, but having a dedicated volume control with game to chat mix on the controller is awesome. To me, that just comes in handy because certain headsets like this don't have any game to chat mix. It's an analog headset, and being able to control it on the controller is really, really nice. So the other thing it does, if you hit the plus sign, B where it says SIG, that's signature sound, double B is bass boost, T in BB is treble and bass boost, you have vocal boost, and then there's superhuman hearing mode, which they've dialed back. It actually sounds a lot better than the old iterations of superhuman hearing. It's not as walkie-talkie like or ear piercing, and it makes it sound pretty loud too. So if you need a little bit more power and you're playing FPS games, maybe give that a shot. You lose some of the deep bass that you get in like signature sound or bass boost, but the fact that this has onboard EQ profiles for different audio gear is great. As of now, there is no way to do custom onboard EQ. I did put in a feature request because how crazy would that be if a controller gave you a 5 or a 10 band equalizer built in? That would be so slick. If you really need custom, just use Dolby Atmos or Sonar or Equalizer APO if you're on PC, or Atmos on Xbox. So I know I'm still in settings because this is blue. So now I'm going to hit Y. Let's try this again, Y. And you can see that says connect. So this is the connect mode. So right now the default is Xbox and PC, which means I'm connected to this. If I switch over to smart devices, it will turn on its Bluetooth mode for gaming, which uses Bluetooth 5.1. And I tried this on my Pixel tablet. And surprisingly, the gaming experience on that was really good as well. I would never use a Bluetooth controller on a tablet for competitive play, but for casual gaming, it worked great. So I'm going to go back. Let's go to the left, app link. Clicking this and then clicking activate, that's how I connect to my smartphone for the onboard notifications. Going to lighting. So in the lighting profile, there's a few things I want to show you. So you have color, which there are some gradients, and as you toggle through, you can see the colors changing here. I'm going to keep going. Now if I hit bumper, now we have solid colors, which I like a lot. I like the deeper red. I actually like the purple one a bit. So it's just a matter of preference. Now there is the ability to go full RGB where you can pick of 16.7 million colors, but on the app, I can tell you right now, it is a pain. I can't get it to really customize yet. So there's going to be some growing pains early on in case you have a very specific hue that you're going for. It's a little challenging to use right now because you can't use the mouse to interact with the app. You have to use the controller, and I couldn't get the RGB slider to go exactly where I wanted. I'm going to go over to effects. Now you can have static mode, you have breathing, which is going to pulse on and on real slow, color cycle, and you can already see that that made a change right there on the side, linear pulse, dynamic, which is a reactive one, and then back to static. So I typically just leave it static. Effect speed, if you do any of the ones that pulse, flash, whatever, you can change how fast it does that, and then back to color. So I'm going to go back. Now vibration, check this out. You can actually change the vibration motor strength, both left and right side, and the left and right trigger. And what's great about this is when you do it through the controller, you can feel the change, so you know exactly what it's doing. If you customize the vibration motor through any of the apps, there's no vibration in real time. You're just simply picking an option on the app. So I like customizing it through the controller because you can actually get a better feel for what you're changing. So let's do that. Right side, left trigger. You can feel that vibrating. And now I'm set. Now check this out. Axis mapping. Again, this is all on the controller. Left stick response. You have linear, which is standard, precision, and you can see the way that curve works. So basically, if you're going outward, it's slow at first, and then it gets very fast at the very end. Then fast means that it's very aggressive up front and then tapers off at the end. So most people are going to be used to standard, but there's some advantage to precision if you play a very high sensitivity and you snipe and do close quarter combat. Getting used to that option might be a fun way to change up your game. Left stick dead zones. So check this out. Now it's set to 0%, and I go to, so I'm on the left side, right stick. Same thing, dead zone, 0%. I think I changed profiles at some point because I had already customized all this. I might have switched it when I was messing around with the video stuff earlier. Left trigger, you can change the dead zone on the left trigger, and then right trigger, also at 0, and then we're back to thumbstick. You can also do, I didn't see it yet, so it's probably going to be in the settings. I'll show you that after, but you can calibrate the thumbsticks. So you go like full rotation, and I'll show you that. Buttons, again, this is where it's super easy. I did change profiles. Yeah, it says profile 4. That's where I went wrong. So let's just go to profile and go back to 1. And now I'll be curious if I'm right. So this is a great example. There we go, 0% dead zone. So I had switched profiles. I must have done that when I was connected to my PC earlier. So we're good to go. I'm back to where I was. And there's my button mapping again. You can see that once you know what to click on, it's pretty intuitive. So P1, this is set for Call of Duty, so because of between looting, melee, jumping, all that stuff. I like using the back buttons because I often want to aim and move while I'm trying to interact with stuff. So that's all you need to do. And it's so easy. All I have to do is, if I want to customize P1, is just click A on it, and then I can toggle through every option. You have the left trigger, right trigger, bumpers, and the D-pad. Then you have Pro Aim, which actually scales down the sensitivity of your right thumbstick. So when that's enabled, if you hold that down, you get better precision. Again, that's another option for people who play, fast-paced first-person shooters, and you want to have a dynamic, aim profile and not fixed to like high sensitivity. So we go to the mixer. This is a blown-up version of that shortcut I was showing you earlier, but there's some extra features hidden in here. So you have overall volume, which this does get pretty loud. It's still a controller. It's not like it's an audiophile, amp or anything like that. So it's comparably loud, if not slightly louder than the standard Xbox controller. It's comparable to the Elite. Very, very similar. Headset mixer, there's the game to chat mix blown up, so you get a more an easy to see graphical representation of that setting. Then I go right bumper again. Mic monitoring. This does work pretty well. It's not like studio quality, and it's not 100% instant, but the delay is extremely minimal. This is better than a lot of gaming headsets that have microphone side tone built into it. So the fact that you have that option built into a controller means that my tried and true Epos H6 Pro now has mic monitoring if I want to hear myself at night. Right bumper again. This feature is huge. Mic gain on an Xbox controller is massive because I like the VZR Model 1. I've used this headset a lot in first-person shooters, but the only drawback to the Model 1 has been the microphone isn't as sensitive, and on Xbox controllers specifically, they usually have a weak microphone preamp. The PlayStation controllers, you can adjust the gain, and it works really well on PlayStation, but it typically struggles on Xbox. This is the opportunity now where you can use the VZR Model 1 and have a good controller where you can boost the microphone sensitivity enough to help still make sure people can hear you. So I absolutely love that feature. So let's go back to the mixer, because I think I covered everything. Mic gain, yeah, mic open. So you can mute the mic as well, and then that should cover it. And then there's your sound profiles from earlier. So I want to go into the profiles I already showed you. You can see again how fast it is to switch. And I'm making sure, I just look over it so I don't have glare from my top light. Social is if you have notifications from your phone, you can go through the settings menu to find that. So then we go to system. System is where you can see your firmware version. Right now I'm on 1.0.3, which was the latest firmware available at the time of this review. It did have an update. I was on 0.01 before. Check out how awesome this is. Again, built into the controller stick. Now it's flashing. It tells me to rotate. It's getting the full range of the left stick. Now it knows it's calibrated and I can go back. Triggers, again, the same thing, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not on hair trigger mode, which I'm not, and I'll show you how these work in a moment. Squeeze this all the way. You can see that going up and down. Calibrated. So all again through the controller. Screen brightness is pretty self-explanatory. That's this screen. It doesn't get crazy bright, but honestly, if it got any brighter, the battery life would get pretty abysmal, maybe 5-6 hours if this thing was cranked. LED brightness is this. So if you want this side to be darker and I hit A, that's going to apply once I back out of my settings. So just to show you, you can see that it's darker now. So I'm going to bring that back up. Screen timeout, that's this screen only, so you can choose how long it takes before that screen goes black. If you set it to 0, it'll never time out. So let's go to the next one. Sleep timeout. If your controller, if you're not touching the controller, this is basically how fast the controller goes into sleep mode. Now I've had some issues with Call of Duty where I like go to get some snacks or whatever, and then the controller times out and shuts off 5 minutes later. I don't realize I switched to keyboard and mouse. I load the game and I'm disconnected. So then I'm not prepared. So I just set it to 0 because I just turn off the controller when I'm done with it. Power mode, custom is because I just defined all of those settings, but they do give you presets like full, balanced, and eco, and then back to custom again. Now you can see here, the interesting thing is when you go from full to custom, it stays bright. And when you go from eco to custom, you see how it's dark. These are just little bugs that I've found in this user interface that I think will be patched with future firmware. Charging LED. This RGB strip changes color based off the charge state of the battery, and it will turn green once you're at full capacity. Speaking of which, I don't think I touched on this. So it's rated for 30 hours. I get under 10 with everything turned on and running. It's more like 8 or 9 if the vibration motors are on and I have RGB, and I had a screen timeout of 5 minutes, about 8 or 9 hours. I got over 25 hours if I turned off RGB and left my screen timeout at 5. So that is helpful to know from like real world gaming. Now the Elite 2 lasts like forever. I always get 30 hours plus, but that has no RGB or screen. So that's to be expected. The other thing though, if I go back into these settings again, let me go into this. The charging speed, by the way, is 2 hours to fully charge. As long as your USB port is powerful enough, you can rapid charge it. So 2 hours can get you at least 10 hours of gaming, but if the screen's off, 25 hours. So that's great. And I think that covers, yeah, social alert colors. So if you get a notification from your phone, reset the controller, and again, back to firmware status. So there's some amazing stuff. Now I'm still in the settings, so I just changed my signature mode. And you can see that there's a quick option to mute as well. So there's all the controls one last time. You can see me turning it on and off. So it's an interactive little interface. Very, very convenient. You have the standard 3.5 millimeter output on the bottom. Of course, it supports microphone. On the hair trigger feature, so you have a hard switch for a first-person shooter, and I'm going to bring the Xbox one back out because I want you to hear this difference. The Xbox has 3 ranges. You have hair trigger, and then medium throw, and then full. Now on the Xbox, if you're on hair trigger mode, this little bit of movement is like super analog. It still goes 0 to 100 linear, but very, very quickly. The Turtle Beach one is 0 or 100%. There's nothing in between when you're on the hair trigger mode. If you go full linear, then of course it's going to work for like racing games, things like that. So I want you to hear the difference in the triggers at full stop versus hard stop. So right now I'm in the full swing. It's a little softer. It's like a softer landing. And if I go into full swing on this one, it feels good. Like, I don't know how much you can hear on the sound, but it just feels a little bit more precise. And then if I go to the hard stop, listen to the difference here. Oops, let's go to that one. Almost like a little bit of a rattle. And then you go to the hard stop on this one. Again, that feels great. Now, the only buttons I'm going to complain about, this is still a micro switch on the bumpers. You can hear it, which is like a mouse click. This one's not. But you hear how this one's still a little bit louder? You actually, even though it's a membrane switch, the switching mechanism feels a little softer and squishier, but the actual like bottoming out full motion has more of a bump to it. This one feels like I can squish it in a little bit. I don't know if it's just the way it swings in when I actuate the bumper, but it just feels a little bit soft. Now, it's very accurate and precise. I don't have any erroneous grenade throws with this one, unlike my Elite 2, which is wearing out. But that's the only one that if I had to critique anything, I wish the bumpers had a more tactile feel to it. So in hand, I do have a scale. I want to talk about the weight real quick, because to me, considering that has a screen, all those controls, the mechanical switches, the Hall effect, like, you know, it could have been heavier. And I actually like that this is fairly lightweight. So let's get into grams. Put this controller on. 252 grams. I'm going to go to the Elite controller. 346 grams. You could argue that that's because the Elite 2 is using more premium materials or whatever. You know, it's rubberized. It has these nice metal paddles. I do love the way the Elite 2 feels. I'm not going to lie. This still feels really solid. There's no flex whatsoever. The controller is built extremely well, but that lighter weight and this material, it's very, very comfortable to play for long gaming sessions. So I actually really like the lighter weight. Now, just to put it in perspective, I'm going to put this stock controller. Now I have a rechargeable battery in this one. It's not using the AA's. 282 grams. And again, 248. That's impressive to jam that much and still keep the weight down and still feel solid. So where my nitpicks are, I like that it's Hall effect, but there's no longer a thumbstick. I typically play with a longer right thumbstick, and when you look at the top-down view of these two guys, you can see the Elite 2 with the extendable stick is quite a bit longer. It's also very easy to switch out. You even have magnetic tension here, but I didn't like the other tension settings anyway. So this has nothing to swap. Now that stick will last forever, but if you like a longer throw, to me these caps aren't sufficient enough. You know what, I do have a micrometer, so I can measure the cap distance. I didn't think about doing that for the review, but I want to show you the cap width difference in case you're shopping for aftermarket caps to extend it further. So just real quick, if I look at the stock Xbox controller, I have a cap width of, if I can read this okay, I just want to make sure I get an accurate reading, 16.7 millimeters. So right about we'll just say 16.5 millimeters. The Elite 2 controller, 16.6. So yeah, we're within 0.1 millimeters of each other. Let's go to the Turtle Beach one. 16.28. So it's really close. Some caps may work, but it depends on the design. Like I know with this cap, I can easily put this on a stock Xbox controller and it's going to work just fine. So it just depends on the design, but like a hard plastic grab, I'm not sure how well it's going to stay on. But it's worth trying. It's close enough where some of those cap designs might actually work. All right, now I'm talking to you on the EPOS H6 Pro microphone connected to the Turtle Beach Stealth Ultra. The microphone gain is set to 9 out of 10 because 10 is like really pushing the volume. But this is what the microphone sounds like, and now we're going to switch over to the Elite 2 so you can hear the difference. All right, now I'm talking to you on the Elite 2 controller microphone preamp, if you will, connected to the same EPOS H6 Pro headset. Comparable mic quality, but I'm curious what you think in the comments below. Now, all of those features and customization is amazing, but it wouldn't matter if it doesn't game well, like the real world use. And this is where the Ultra is like beyond impressive. And there's two reasons, really. The Hall effect sticks are the future. You're going to see so many controllers coming out that are switching to the Hall effect sensor thumbsticks because they don't drift now or later. That's super important. You can have a controller that works great out of the box, but after a few months to a year or two, you will eventually have some kind of a drift issue. Then you have the choice of either spending more money to buy another controller or opening up your dead zone on your settings, typically in your game, so you don't have stick drift. Basically, when you're not touching the joystick, your guy's not, slowly doing this. So this, being able to set it at 0 and do calibrations from time to time if you need to, means that in your game, which is a huge thing, by the way, you can set this to 0, but make sure if you're playing a game like Call of Duty, you also set the dead zone to 0. There is a profound improvement in aiming performance. You will legitimately get better if you can have everything set to 0 without drift, because that means even your most subtle movement is correcting your gun. There's no like dead area that does nothing and then all of a sudden you're overcompensating. So that's a tangible benefit. This also has extremely low latency. I couldn't tell the difference in latency going from the wireless transmitter to the Elite 2 using the Xbox transmitter. They're both extremely fast. I felt just as competitive between them, and some other controllers haven't approached that kind of latency performance before. I haven't used this as a wired controller like this, to be honest, because the latency has been fine. I didn't feel like a need per se, but that's part of why this wire is so long. There's no locking mechanism like the Sony PlayStation Edge, but it still feels fairly secure. So the couple bugs I had, again, this is the whole full disclosure thing. I think the software needs to be improved a little bit because I couldn't really get the RGB customization to do exactly what I wanted using the app to pick an exact color. There's also no like multi-zone. It's an all or nothing affair. That's fine. The other little bug I had is when I used this cable on my desktop, I had an issue where my microphone was like really garbled and staticky sounding. Like I thought something was really wrong. I tried this on a different computer and it worked fine. I switched cables on the computer that was all garbled and messed up sounding, and it worked fine. So it was like a hit and miss type thing. I don't think it's a real issue with the controller. I think it had something to do with just unplugging it several times, but I did have an issue with the mic not sounding right. So I'm just sharing that because if for any reason you have the same problem, maybe try a different cable. I don't know how sensitive it is to that, or plug this transmitter directly in your computer just to give it a shot. Again, just trying to share my actual experience and not hide anything. Aside from that, ergonomically, it's great. I didn't think I would like having the micro switches instead of paddles. I typically prefer paddles, but I got used to this, and I'm almost there. I feel like I'm 80% there to the Elite 2 now as far as speed for interaction, and I think that's just going to come over time with muscle memory because I've been using Elite controllers for a long time. So to me, this is an absolute home run because even if the software is kind of buggy, you don't need that for anything aside from a firmware update. You can do the rest all in the controller. That's so convenient. And it worked flawlessly on every platform I tried it on. Obviously not PlayStation, but Android tablet, on my Pixel tablet, Windows, and Xbox. It just is such a seamless thing. It takes a couple extra seconds to pair than my Elite 2 controller did. But other than that, it was rock solid. I am preferring to play on this now over every other controller I have, simply because I can run the dead zone at 0. I am definitely better using this controller than I am with anything I've used. So to me, that's the most profound benefit. So hopefully you found this review helpful and you learned a little bit more about the Elite, or the Elite, the Stealth Ultra controller. It's worth the pre-order if this video comes out before launch, or at least definitely worth trying out for yourself to see if you like it. Thank you so much for watching this and for making it all the way to the end. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next one. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.